So we're given a graph of g of x, and it says sketch the graph of y equals negative g of x. Here, this negative right here is outside of the function. That means it's going to affect your y values, and you're going to multiply. If you're thinking of individual points, all of your y values are going to get multiplied by a negative 1. Doing that, so if you're ever wondering, what is that going to do? Because I find, especially with the negatives, trying to memorize it directly is going to run into problems. Because there's, okay, you're like negative inside or outside, flip over x or flip over y, it's going to get confusing because they're so similar. So what I like to do is I like to think, okay, outside affects my y values. If my y values are multiplied by a negative 1, what happens? Well, let's look at a single point. Here I've got the point 1 comma, and notice on this one it's going by 2s, 2, 4, 6. Probably would have been tempted to label that as 1 comma 3, so that's just pointing out to be careful with your scale. If I multiply that y value by a negative 1, I'm going to get the point 1 comma negative 6. And the result is a flip over the x-axis. So what I always do is I think about an individual point, and I think if my y value becomes negative, well, that flips it over the x-axis. If my x value would become negative, that would flip it over the y-axis. So there we've got our graph. We want to sketch the graph, so that's what's going to happen with everything. Everything is going to get flipped over the x-axis. So if I think about this point right here, which is one block or 2 units away from the x-axis, it's going to be right here. So I can take a number of points. Here's another one. That's going to flip down to there. What is the point that's not going to change? There's going to be, when I draw this, there is going to be one point where my blue graph and my red graph intersect. And it's going to be, nope, sorry, you're right. It's going to be on the 0. Sorry, there we go. The x-intercept, right? Because if you flip something over the x-axis, if you multiply your y value by a negative, notice I don't know exactly what this point was originally. I don't know the x-coordinate, but I know that the y-coordinate is 0. And if the action is you're multiplying y by a negative 1, what happens when you multiply 0 by a negative 1? It stays the same. It doesn't change. So that will be the one point that stays the same. So I've done a couple of points. I can now draw the graph in the same way. And your new resulting graph should look like a flip over that x-axis. State the domain and range of each function. So our original one, well, since there's arrowheads, or there should be arrowheads going on here, this means, those arrowheads means it continues in 2 directions forever. Continues up forever and to the right forever for the one on the right, and down forever and to the left forever for the one on the left. So our domain is everything, our range is everything, and as a result, even when we flip it over, the domain and range stay the same. Okay, so to get you warmed up, we're going to take some time to work on these. And if you have any questions from yesterday's homework, I can help you with that as well at this point.